Hello guys, you're welcome to my video. My name is Imo John and I'll be taking you on data analysis tutorials. What is data analysis? Data analysis is a process of collecting data, organizing all this data in a manner where someone can draw a conclusion or make a better decisions. As a data analyst, the decision you make, the business decision you make is based on the data you've collected and the analysis that you've made on this data. So you don't make decision based on your emotion. You base it based on the information that you received from your data. So the work of a data analyst is to collect data, organize it in a manner that will be able to, analyze it and draw conclusions from it, and be able to, communicate these findings and the trend that he or she has discovered, to be able to communicate it to people or shareholders who are ready to, work on this information that the data analyst has to be able to draw on. So the next step is how to perform a data analysis. There are steps or there are steps data analysts used in performing data analysis. Number one is define your goals. What are you going to achieve? What is your goals in this project, in this data analysis project? What do you want to achieve? You must first of all define your goals. The next step is decide how you will analyze the data. Decide what tools are you going to be using. Are you going to be using SQL? Are you going to be using Power BI for data visualization? Are you going to be using Python? You have to decide what do you need and what do you want to use in analyzing your data. And the next step is collecting data. You have to get data from different sources that will be able to help you to better analyze your data. You don't dwell on one data set. You must be able to look for different sources of data that will be able to help you to come to a better conclusion to your findings. The next step is analyze data. This is the step in which you actually work on analyzing your data. You use different functions, different formatting, different ways, different principles to be able to analyze your data, to be able to come to the conclusion of your findings. And then the last step is result presentation. After you've gotten the informations, after you've gotten your findings, you must be able to present your result in the way that the shareholder will be able to understand and be able to act upon the findings and the information that you've received, and you'll be able to present. So you must be able to communicate. So as a data analyst, you must be an effective communicator. Okay, must be able to communicate your findings to people. Okay, that you're working with. The next step is, what are the type of data analysis? There are different types of data analysis. Okay, so we have the descriptive data analysis, we have the predictive data analysis, and we have the exploratory data analysis. There are other types of data analysis, but in this tutorial, in this class session, we are going to be looking at exploratory data analysis, where we explore our data to discover trends, where we explore our data to draw out conclusions and informations that we may not have known. Okay, so the next step is data analysis tools for these tutorials is SQL. SQL is SQL query language. Okay, the Microsoft SQL query language. That is what we're going to be using in these tutorials. Introduction to SQL. SQL is a structural query language. It has a structure. It follows a structure. So later on in this course, we'll get to understand the structures and we'll know how to use them. Okay, so SQL is a structural query language. It is a type of query language that enables data analysts to communicate with a database. It is the primary way data analysts extract data from databases. So SQL is great for working with larger data sets, even trillions of rows of data. Okay, so you can imagine how large your data set could be. Okay, so SQL will be able to draw out information from this data. Okay, in Excel, we have Excel can only be used for a smaller data set, but for SQL can accommodate larger data sets. Okay, so point to note in SQL. SQL query has a structure such as select, from, and where, etc. So let's move to our Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, where I'll be showing you. Okay, so this is SQL Server. It's showing us here default settings. So this is the server type, which is database engine. The server name is and we can just connect, and it will open up where we can write our query. Okay, so this is the SQL workbench. Okay, so you click on your new query. This is where you click on new query to be able to work on your SQL query. Okay, so coming over here, this is where you can choose the database that you are going to be working on. Okay, now look at that. You have a list of databases. We have master model, and we have MSB, we have Olympic Meta Countrywide. these are database that I was imported into the Microsoft SQL Query Server Management Studio. Okay, so now I wanted to show you something over here. Okay, sorry. Let's connect to our server once more. Okay, so we're talking about SQL query has structures such as select, from, where. So now I want to show you these structures, which is select. You can choose. Let's choose to write in a capital letter. Show it professionally. From. We have where. Order by. We have group by. Okay, so these are the structure that is in the SQL query language. These are structure. This is the first a command that we write first before we now start writing queries. Okay, so this is the structure in the SQL. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation. So in SQL, single or double quote means beginning and ending of a string. Okay, in SQL, single or double quote means the beginning and ending of a string. So you can choose to use a single quote, or you can choose to use a double quote. It's still the same thing. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so let's say you are writing a code, and let's say where channel is equal to Facebook, for example. It is showing us here on the line because we need to set it to our database fast and fussy. Okay, so let's say for example we have a query like this, and we want to filter it using the way clause where channel is equal to Facebook. Facebook here is a text string. Okay, so to be able to filter it, you must begin it with a single quote, or you can choose to use a double quote. You can choose to use a double quote. It's still going to give you the answer, but make sure that you always close your quotation. Okay, so that is what I mean. So let's go back. In SQL, capitalization usually doesn't matter. You could enter select or select, there's a mistake here, but it is professional. You use capital letter consistently. So what do I mean here? Let's say you're writing a query here. You can choose to write, like we have here, select from orders. Okay, so if you run this query, it will run and give you a list of tables. What we're actually doing here is we are writing a query that will bring to us all the items that is involved in the orders table. Okay, so we say select star from orders. So orders is a table. Okay, we're going to come to where we're going to come to that, where I'm going to explain on the select clause and the from clause. Okay, but I wanted to explain that you can choose to use a capital letter here and you still run your query, or you can choose to use a small letter. Just to use a small letter here, and you come here after you've highlighted that query. You come here and you click on execute, or you click on your key F5. So when you execute, it will run and still give us the same result. So you can choose to use a capital letter for select or from, or you can choose to use a small letter, or you can choose to use select star from. Let's run it and see if it's going to run. See, it's giving us the same answer. So it doesn't matter whether you're using a capital letter or a small letter, or you're mixing a capital letter with a small letter. But it is more professional when you become consistent using capital letters. So when you use capital letters, select from orders, it is more professional when you are consistent in it. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation. So comma used after the select command is used as a delimiter to separate information into column. Okay, so now let's go to workbench to understand what they're asking us there. Okay, so a comma can be used as a delimiter. A delimiter is a character that separates two columns or more than two columns. Okay, so a delimiter could be a comma, okay, a space, okay, but this is in SQL query language, spacing is not allowed. Okay, when once you give a space, it's going to throw an error. Okay, so we use a comma. So let me show you. So we say select ID, comma, account ID. These are columns, like you can see here, ID, account ID, occurred at. These are columns. You can see over here, ID, account ID, occurred at Abeso Ceiling. These are columns in this database. Okay, in this database called Patch and Posse. Look at the name of the database here, Patch and Posse database. Okay, so the delimiter here is a comma. So let's say occurred at the time that the transaction occurred at. Okay, and we say from orders table. Okay, let's see what is wrong here. The underlining red. That means there's an error somewhere. So let's put occurred at. Okay, so we've gotten that. So select ID, comma, account ID, comma, occurred at. So this comma is a delimiter which separates ID from account ID and account ID from occurred at. Okay, so if you run this query now, go to execute or you click on F5. Okay, you've seen our query as run. So we have the column ID, and what separates this column is the comma. What separates ID from account ID is this comma that we put here. Okay, so we have explained that. So let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation. Okay, want to know in SQL? Use snake case name for columns. Column name should never have spaces in them. Okay, we've talked about that. Your column should not have spaces in them. Okay, so let's just run through that. Okay, let's continue. If total ticket, okay, is a column name, had a space and look like total ticket. Okay, there's no sort of snake case here. If it looks like this total ticket, then SQL would throw a syntax error because it wouldn't know what to do with the second word ticket. So spaces are bad in SQL. Let's go back to our SQL Query Studio. Okay, so let's say, for example, we didn't put in our select ID, let's say we didn't put the snake case here on ID, which is a column name. So let's say we put a space there. You see SQL, the server is underlining this word with red. It shows that it's not going to run. That's an error. Let's try to run it and see how it goes. You see what we have? We have an error here, invalid column name account, because this name doesn't show, account doesn't show as a column in the others table. Okay, so the word that is shown on the others table is account ID. Okay, so the snake case is what joins this account to ID. So the space over here will make the server to give us an error. Okay, so the column name should come, if it's two words, you must join it with snake case. Okay, so that is it. Let's go back. So spaces are bad in SQL. Never use space. When you add a comment to a query using these two dashes, the database query engine will ignore everything in the same line after. Okay, so if you want to make a comment, okay, we must start it with these two dashes. Without that, the server will think that you are writing a code. Let's go to our studio and see if we can understand that. Okay, so let's say I want to make a comment. Let's say up here, I want to comment on this. Okay, I want to comment on this query that I just wrote down. Okay, so you start with these two dashes. Once you write those two dashes, you type these two dashes, it becomes green. So whatever thing you write here becomes green. Okay, and let's say you want to a code, make a comment, a query. Let's say a query that filters the account ID. Okay, so if you run this code, let's see something here. You see, you notice when you highlight everything here and you click execute, it will run. The query is going to run successfully. Why? The server knows that because of these two dashes that you put here, these two dashes show that this query is a comment, this line is a comment, and it's not part of this code, it's not part of this query, but it's rather a comment. Okay, so if you are writing a comment of one line, you can use these two dashes. So everything on that line becomes green, and the server will identify it as a comment. Okay, let's say you have multiple lines that, let's say you have multiple lines, you write comments. Okay, let's say from the orders table, join the account table. Okay, let's say we make another comment here on the second line. You can choose to use two dashes, but you can use another two dashes. But if you don't want to use, you can do this way. You can use star, and you do dashes slash star. You notice when you start with slash star, everything including our query, which is select ID, becomes green. Okay, so now the server is going to treat everything here as a comment. Okay, but if you want to end your comment here, you have to use the same star and then you use the slash. You notice as we type star and this slash, this becomes a query. This becomes the code that we are going to run, and the SQL server now sees these two lines as comments. Okay, so if you run the whole of this, it will give us this. Okay, so that is it for slash star and two dashes. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Multi-lines comment. If you make comments that take up multiple lines, we just talked about that. If you make comments that take up multiple lines, you can use two dashes for each line, or is a mistake over here, two dashes for each line. Or if you have more than two lines of comment, it might be cleaner and easier to use slash and star to start a comment, and slash star and star slash to close the comment. We just talked about that. So let's move on. So now, the next video, I will be showing you how you can actually create your table using SQL, how you can insert into your tables different columns, and how you can update and rename your columns. See you next video.